How to remain cash rich but not hoard? Is hoarding natural for human beings? Is it something that we inherited from something else, somewhere else, from our past generations, perhaps from animals, perhaps from insects, perhaps from different life forms? Let's look at the reason as to why we have this habit of hoarding in general. What is hoarding? Hoarding is about putting it away, about hiding it, about accumulating it for some future use. Therefore, let's see if this is unique to human beings or if this is there for other life forms. If you look at almost all other life forms, whether it is a plant or an insect, or a crawling a snake or a flying bird or an animal or a human being, everyone seems to have this habit of hoarding, accumulating, putting it away, hiding it away for future use. You must have heard about how ants accumulate food for a rainy day. You must have heard about how birds accumulate stuff for their the young ones when there is plenty for future use, for the young ones to survive when they grow up. You must have heard about how different insects catch their prey and leave it in the nest or leave it in the hideout for the new ones when they are born to eat so that they could survive. You must have even heard about how a praying mantis kills its spouse in order to feed the poor. So hoarding is something that is natural across all life forms. However, we have this thing about hoarding it beyond what we need, and that's what we call greed. Greed originated from hunger. Greed used to mean in Old English hunger. So that it means that when there is a higher appetite for us to eat something more than what we need, it's called as greed. So as you can see, there is a clear link between how animals and other life forms accumulated stuff for future use, for survival need, eventually has grown into something like greed, something like excessive hoarding in human beings. So let's look at how this has extended to cash or wealth or properties or richness in economic terms. What originated in other life forms, and even in human form, as a basic survival need for us to accumulate, eventually led to cash. Where did this cash originate from? As you know, in the past, human beings lived on barter. We exchanged stuff. A farmer would farm something and produce some food and give it to a tailor who will stitch a cloth and give it to him, who will then give it to, let's say, a mason who will build a house, and so on and so forth. And it became too difficult for human beings to assess what is the real value that one could, assess one's value, one's produce value, one's talent value, and so on and so forth. So they decided that let's come up with a standard way of creating cash whereby we can look at how we could assess. So as soon as cash came into existence, there became a need for someone like an accountant. So the accountant kept track of an income and his expenses, and the difference between income and expenses went into assets, creation of assets. And when there were no assets, when there were less income, obviously a trader or a businessman went about creating some liability, took some loan, and the asset minus the liability became a net worth of an individual. The income minus the expenses became a factor of how rich the company would be. Okay, so the interest for any businessman is to make the company cash rich, make the company high net worth, and that's essentially how the need to remain cash rich originated in business. There's nothing wrong. So far, so good. There's nothing wrong in creating a cash rich organization. So let's look at how much of cash rich we need to be. I would like you to define, urge you to look at being cash rich in terms of the time. Supposing today you stop earning, okay, for some reason, how long would you like your organization to survive? So that determines how much cash you would like to have. Ideally, you would like that to be for a few years, or if not a few years, at least until the end of your lifetime, which could be 30 years, 40 years, and so on and so forth. So the longer your company is able to survive without earning any more money, the higher you are in terms of richness, in terms of being cash rich. Therefore, you must definitely work towards setting a goal for yourself. And that essentially can be looked at by generating excess cash from your income. So you take your income and you increase your income, find ways of increasing the income, reduce your expenses. The remaining becomes your cash, and if you're able to accumulate cash for future use, your company tend to be cash rich. So let's look at how you can increase your cash. In my opinion, bear with me while I explain this. In my opinion, cash is an idea. It is a value. It is a worth. It is a concept in people's mind. Let me explain to you with a simple example. You take a look at all these telephones, all these mobile phones. How much are you willing to pay for these mobile phones? These mobile phones may or may not have come into existence in this planet, but these obviously look like a lifestyle phones, and you might want to pay a little more than what you have or you would have paid for your mobile phone in the past. Take a look at some of the mobile phones that people have bought in the past, and these mobile phones obviously got sold at a lower value than some of the other mobile phones that you would have heard about. Now, why would anybody want to pay higher value or a lesser value for something? Okay, that depends on how much of physical value one gets out of a product, how much of a rational value gets out of a product, and more importantly, how much of an emotional value a person gets out of a product. The higher the emotional value one can get out of a product, higher cash one is willing to pay for the product. Therefore, cash is a thought, it's a value perception that somebody is willing to carry in his head, and therefore, according to that particular thought, one is willing to pay higher value, and that value has a direct link to the pain that one is having. Higher the pain, the bigger the solution, the higher the value that one is willing to pay. Therefore, you must definitely look at how big a pain you can work on and how powerful value your product can create in the market, and how fantastic the solution could be for the organization. If you are able to put your thoughts, if you're able to put in your thoughts behind this, your organization's thoughts behind it, work behind it, and create a larger value product or a service, I can guarantee you that you're going to become cash rich and accumulate money just enough so that your organization can be prosperous always.